Hello and welcome to DIYing to Craft. My name is Sabrina and I'm so happy you're here. If you're finding my channel for the first time, I hope you'll stay connected by liking, subscribing, and clicking the notification bell. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. Help me grow here on YouTube by liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. Now it's time to craft. This video is being recorded in January of 2024. And as I think about putting away my Christmas decor, I'm in no rush. I want to focus on creating decor for everyday use. Since I'm also dealing with seasonal sniffles, I've decided to revamp my tissue boxes. On the screen are most of the supplies I used for this craft. To duplicate the tissue box design that I'm creating, which will cover a tissue box that is approximately 9 inch by 5 inch by 3.5 inches, you'll need 84 tumbling tower blocks, which is one box plus 12 additional blocks, 2 5-gallon paint stir sticks, wood glue, 1.5 inch ribbon, although 2 inch ribbon might fill the space better, and paint. I used white chalk paint. We're going to start off by gluing 5 blocks in a straight line end to end, and then we're going to repeat this 8 times. And between your gluing, you want to make sure that you clean up any of the glue that squeezes out from between the blocks. I used a baby wipe, but you could use a wet paper towel, a wet wash rag, something that you might have available to you. The gluing process does take quite a while, because you do want to let it set up. You could use hot glue. I'm not a particular fan of that, but it could be done, and I think it would work. The only concerns I have with it is sometimes my hot glue doesn't seal very close together so that it leaves a slight gap, and I didn't want that, so the wood glue really connects the two pieces better, and I feel it's a stronger hold. The only problem with that is you have to wait for it to dry or to set up. And in my case, I feel that you need to use clamps to help hold it together. It might just be an over action on my part, because I have seen other people not use clamps. But for me, I think it actually benefits the connection. So you just see me gluing it together. I clean up in between just to get the excess glue off. I thought that I might stain this particular one with a faux stain. However, I did end up painting it, so cleaning off the glue wasn't quite as necessary. But if you were going to stain it or even do a faux stain, it doesn't hold the color as well if you have a lot of excess glue. Now, if you're going to do a considerable amount of sanding, you could sand off that excess glue. I wasn't planning on doing a lot of sanding, although I did do some sanding. So I was just trying to make sure that I tidied up after each little bit of glue squeezed out. So here I've already glued together 2 of the rows, and I'm just going to show you how I glued it together. I do rotate and move them around often because they aren't all the same exact size, so you want to try to line them up as best possible. You might even want to dry fit them beforehand to make sure that you have some that are the same size. I came across some of the blocks being longer than other blocks, and it would have not worked as well for this. So I just kind of set it all up, traded out the blocks that I needed to, and then once they're glued together, or once I'm gluing them together, I kind of rotate and move them around to make sure that I'm getting the right. You'll see right here I kind of flipped one over because it didn't line up well. And these are the little clamps that I use. I believe I got these from Walmart. They weren't very expensive. My wood glue is just the Gorilla Wood Glue. I do like this particular brand of glue. I think it works well. And I've just got the little ruler there from the Dollar Tree. And I think I might even got that little triangle ruler from the Dollar Tree, but I'm not 100% on that. So this little ladder design I thought would look really cute as a tissue box cover. My plan is to weave some ribbon in between the openings of this design. Other thoughts that I had is perhaps putting some cardstock and gluing it to the inside of the pattern so that it shows through the openings of the little ladder design. But I chose to go with the ribbon because I thought it looked cute, and with just putting a little hot glue on there, if I wanted to change it out seasonally, I could. You'll see me cleaning up after the glue that squeezes out and lining it up. I was trying to keep it as straight as possible, as lined up as possible, and then just using my clamps to help hold it together. This project did take me a little bit of time just because of my own personal schedule and when I'm able to work on crafts, and then also with the fact that I had to wait for the glue to set up. I believe the packaging on the glue says to give it 24 hours for the full hold. In some cases, I did give it 24 hours. In some cases, I might have only given it 6 to 12 hours. So I've got the two sides set up, and now I'm just going to design and kind of dry fit the two ends. These end pieces are made up of 4 rows of 3 blocks and then 4 vertical blocks in the center. Using my ruler to line it up. That is a handy tool to have. If you just have a plain couple of rulers, you could use those to line it up, but I do like this particular ruler and that little triangle. Although I think I might get 2 of those black rulers because I think they line up well and they're very useful. Now that you have all those glued together, you just want to line them up. Make sure they're square. And then glue in the center blocks. So you saw there I just had the tissue box in and I was lining it up to see if it covered everything, just in case I needed to add another row or something, but it looked good. So now I'm going to glue the end to the side. I'm going to also glue on the other end. And for this, my small clamps won't work, so I had to go borrow my husband's larger clamps. And I was able to clamp it together and then glue on the other side too and clamp everything together, and you see the tissue box fits. Now I'm going to use hot glue as a caulk-like product. In the corners, I wanted to reinforce the seam, so I put some caulk in there. I put on the little silicone finger from the Dollar Tree, and I just ran my finger across it like you would if you were caulking your tub. And in my opinion, it gave her a stronger hold. It made the corners reinforced, so it made me feel better about it. It's probably not necessary, but sometimes I like to be a little extra. Now I'm going to be using the 5-gallon stir sticks. I purchased these at, I think those ones came from Walmart. You can get them at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, any of those locations. And I'm just going to line them up. Try to make sure that they're straight to the edges. Use my pencil, draw a line. And then that's where I'm going to end up cutting it. Bringing in my saw, and I thought balancing it on this just scrap thing that I had laying around would be useful, but it didn't work very well because it's circular and it kept moving. So I ended up bringing in a little, I think it's a Tupperware box that I had in my craft room. It was a little bit more sturdy and allowed me to hold it while I did the sawing. Now, if you have miter saw or those miter shears, that probably would work better. This is a saw I had around. I happen to like it, so I went and had used it. However, I will tell you, I did get 2 splinters while doing this particular step. I'm just holding on to those items. I got splinters. And then I bring in my little vacuum to clean up the dust. And I have this little sanding block from the Dollar Tree. And I used it to sand the ends where I cut with my coping saw. Again, cleaning up with my little vacuum. And now I need to create the other side. So I'm going to need to just measure it out. And the reason I don't have exact measurements, or I'm not giving you exact measurements, is because the blocks are all slightly different. It would just be an approximation. So really, if you're going to follow this exact process, you would just need to hold it up to the tissue box cover that you created, line it up as best you could, and then just draw your line and use those measurements to do the cutting. And even after doing this, my cuts weren't perfectly straight. That's probably because of the tools I was using. So everything's cut and I'm just lining it up. And now I'm going to glue it on. Bringing in my little clamps again just so that I can clamp it on so that it will be able to adhere without getting bumped too much. Once I feel it's set up enough, I'm going to go ahead and do the other side and put the other top piece on. Again, once the glue has had an opportunity to set up, I'm going to come back in with my hot glue gun and I'm going to just run it across the edge as if it were caulk. You'll see here I had to refill my glue gun, and what I did is I just heated up the end of the glue stick with the tip of the glue gun so that it would stick to the glue stick that was already in the glue gun. And then I'm just going to glue on the other 2 pieces to complete the top. Now I'm going to come in with this little sanding sponge and I'm just going to sand the edges. And pretty much I sand all over to just kind of smooth it out because these are rough pieces of wood and I don't want to get any more splinters. I thought I'd try the bigger sanding block, but I felt it was too coarse, so I kept with the little sanding sponge. And I was trying to go with the wood grain, a little bit difficult because of the way I glued it, but I was just going across, just gently taking off the edges and trying to smooth it out a little bit. And then this is just a microfiber cloth that I'm just cleaning the dust up with. Now it's time to paint. I'm just using a Waverly white chalk paint and I will paint the whole box. I'm going to use the ribbon and hot glue it just in the corner there. And I'm going to weave it in and out of the openings of the box. As I weave it in, I'm just going to straighten it out and make sure this is a wired ribbon, so I want to make sure that it lines up well and isn't creased. You could do this without a wire ribbon. I think it would work just as well. Just use some hot glue to connect the start of the ribbon, but I left the end of the ribbon loose still because I'm going to go back through and adjust some spots. Like here I'm gluing it in the corner. I just want to make sure that it stays nice and taut. Straighten it up a little bit more. And then glue the end in the corner. You'll see there's a little bit excess, which I will end up cutting off. I'm just using one of those little spatulas from Dollar Tree so that I don't burn my finger. And here I'm cutting off the excess, although the camera angle doesn't allow you to see me actually doing it. And I just go around and I fuss with the edges to make sure everything is lined up. And stick the tissue box in there. And you can still see it a little bit, but I do think it looks better than the original tissue box. Before I painted it, I put the ribbon in there just to see how it would look if I left it unpainted. So here's just an image of that. Just like with the first tissue box cover, we're going to use tumbling tower blocks to make this one. 152 of them, which equals 2 full boxes plus 8 additional blocks. For this one, I used the blocks, the wood glue, paint for a faux stain finish, and Mod Podge as a sealant. Each row on the perimeter has 7 blocks. They're just arranged in different patterns, as seen on the screen. The first row has 7 blocks stacked right on top of one another. And I make sure, because I know I want to do a faux stain finish on this, to really clean up the excess glue so that the faux stain will take nicely. The second row is going to have 3 vertical blocks, 1 horizontal block, and then 3 more vertical blocks. And then the pattern's going to repeat itself around the perimeter. Once the glue is set up on each row, I'm going to then glue them together to make one full side. Starting on the next side, I'm going to follow the same pattern as the first side. Each end will have this same pattern also. I'm going to use my sanding sponge to just lightly go over the entire sides and ends. This is mostly to remove any excess glue that I wasn't able to wipe up, and also to just kind of smooth out those rough tumbling tower blocks. Using a microfiber cloth just to clean up any of the dust. Now it's time for the faux stain. If you haven't tried this yet, I highly recommend it. It is one of my favorite finishes. Basically, the way I do it, all you need to do is put the paint of your color choice on the item that you're going to do the faux stain on, and then use a baby wipe to remove as little or as much of the paint that you want. I have seen other people do a similar process, except they mix the paint in a bowl with water and they apply it with a paintbrush and then wipe it off with like a paper towel or a cloth. Either way works. I haven't tried the other way. I have seen it done. It looks very nice. I do prefer this method, so I will continue doing it this way. And even though I really tried to clean off all the excess glue and I even took the steps of sanding, I can still see a little bit of the glue that prevented the paint from adhering or covering as well as I wanted it to. Thankfully, I'm able to put that side in the tissue box cover, so you won't see it as much. I'll put the nice side out. Now that the faux stain has dried, I'm going to attach the sides to the ends. You really should let these set up a little longer than I did. I got a little impatient and I think I only gave them probably 30 minutes to set up, which I should have done more because you can see here that the end piece separated from the side piece. But I just worked through it. I kind of held them together until I could clamp them again, and then I left them alone for, I believe it was 12 hours. Now I'm going to assemble the top of the box. Instead of having 7 in this row, it actually has 9. And when you're using these clamps, you just have to be careful how much pressure you apply. You can see here I applied too much pressure and it buckled them. So I had to readjust them and then apply the pressure a little bit more delicately. The sides to the top of the box have 11 pieces. 9 of them are flat and 2 of them are turned up. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but in order for it to fit across, I needed to have them arranged that way. I didn't want to cut those 2 end pieces so that they were flush with the rest, so I just left them sticking up. So now I'm going to apply Mod Podge just as a sealant. For this, I like using the sponge brush. I don't typically like to use the sponge brush with Mod Podge because it absorbs too much. But for this, I felt the sponge brush was better so they could get into all the little nooks and crannies. And you can see how this is where those 2 pieces on the top stand up differently than the rest. I think it gave it a little extra character. And here are my finished tissue boxes. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you try this, and if you do, share your pictures with me.